We are here tonight to take part in a high-level debate, and the three debaters representing us are of an extremely high caliber. They are members of the Hong Kong Schools debating team that goes out to the World Championships. So you guys have got your job cut out for you.
And the debate is such. This year the topic is Occupy Central. This is the motion. This House supports Occupy Central as a way to press for universal suffrage. To my right, your left, is our F.C.C. team of debaters. We've got Claudia Mo in this corner, Mike Rowse and Tom Holland. All right, to my left and your right, we've got the Hong Kong Schools Debate Club. Let's introduce first Aspen Wang. Sitting next to her is Petra Ho. Last but not least, also very pretty, Pavan Hegde.
We promise you, and the organizer, the mover behind the campaign by the name of Benny Tai, a legal academic with the Hong Kong University, promises everyone that we're not going to do Occupy Central very lightly. It's a big deal for Hong Kong. And unless we have exhausted all means, in particular legal means, to get what we want, to fight for what we actually think is right and just for Hong Kong, for the next generation, we're not doing it yet, but it would serve as one last resort.
Are you sure that you've exhausted all other possible resorts to gain more universal suffrage?
We're talking about the definition of civil disobedience, right? You can't just, oh, I don't like this F.C.C. regulation, so I would start throwing about wine glasses. This is civil disobedience. You don't do that. We live in a decent society, a civilized society, when it comes to civil disobedience, ladies and gentlemen.
And we say, when you risk such economic and perhaps even political turmoil, we have objections to it. Because if you hypothetically do this, you definitely do not do it without the consent of people you're inadvertently harming as well. Right now, Occupy Central has not given a choice to the silent majority, that 80%, who I talked about earlier, whether they would like to make the trade-off between economic stability and gaining advantages in universal suffrage. Yet if the economic and political damage were to be real, it would be hurting this exact group. Recently, it has issued recommendations that denounced the movement as illegal, repeated it was unconstitutional, and stated that the people of Hong Kong do not support it. Chief Secretary Carrie Lam said exactly yesterday, democracy will never be achieved through civil disobedience. And this is the same Hong Kong government that would normally not risk going against its population, yet it has the guts to remain unshaken by the movement and will not capitulate to the demands for universal suffrage. So at the end of the day, if you don't even have the support of your most important ally, if you don't even have the support of the large amount of people, and if you're splitting your own Democratic Party, how can this ultimately push for universal suffrage?
Look at the other points. There's lots of talk about how Occupy Central hurts livelihoods, how it's illegal. I'm sorry, exactly what laws have been broken? Nobody's even done anything yet. Yeah? The whole point of this movement is that it's a slow ratcheting up. All we've done so far is talk about it. The mere threat, the mere promise of future disobedience has proved remarkably effective at prompting this whole debate. And as for hurting livelihoods, that's just complete nonsense. What livelihoods have been hurt so far? I've heard lots about how this will harm Hong Kong's economy. This is complete and utter nonsense. Okay? On average, in the third quarter of each year, Hong Kong loses one working day to a typhoon. The whole place shuts down, an entire working day is lost. Now that would knock 1.5 percentage points of Hong Kong's economic output for that quarter. Do we see it in the figures? No, of course we don't. Because if someone didn't go shopping that day, they go shopping the next day.
Point, sir.
Go ahead.
What about the big four companies that have come out actively against Occupy Central? Wouldn't it hurt their employees if they joined the movement?
Well, the employees, as you may have noticed, signed a letter saying that they didn't agree with what their bosses said. Why do you think the bosses signed that pathetic advertisement in the newspapers because they want to do business in China and they think by sucking up to Beijing in this way they might get a little bit of business. Yeah.
China is liberalizing at such a fast pace, there can be no telling what will change in the coming years. The China that 25 years ago shot anti-corruption activists is not the China that today is cracking down on corrupt officials, and the China 25 years from now on will be more different still. In other words, attempting to force the hand of Beijing will cause us to move backwards if we fail to prove that we are a progressive society that is capable of moving forward with democracy. No, thank you, ma'ams and sirs. Now, looking onto the second idea of the role of foreign pressure, because our opponents might want to harp on about how Occupy Central will affect diplomacy, but even if foreign governments were to pressurize Beijing, it is highly unlikely that mainland authorities will flinch. History has shown that the central government is not easily pushed over by foreign pressure. We look at how China has held their stance despite overwhelming criticism regarding the way the Tibet occupation was undertaken. Even the UK has been lukewarm in its support, despite Anson Chan and Martin Lee's attempt to rally support at a parliamentary committee hearing in London.
The Communist Party of China, the Communist Party of anywhere, believes that power flows down from the Politburo to the masses. No, it doesn't. Power flows upwards from the people. That is what this debate is all about. This is why the security bureaus of the world in the West are filled with Catholics, because they can better detect communists than anybody else. We have our own Pope, Xi Jinping, just as the Catholics have their Pope from Argentina, and it really doesn't matter. Because if you think that power comes down from the top to the people, then you are in a very sad state.
Yes, sir.
If this supposed majority are silent, how come you know so well what they think?
Sir, this is why on our side of the house we have told you only that they do not support Occupy Central, because they are in the middle.
Know?
Because they have not voted for the referendum that Occupy Central. No, thank you, sir.
Maybe they went down the beach.
Maybe they did, and it's been quite good weather recently, so I hope they did. So, but regardless of that equation, we say that they haven't supported either side, and that's why we can't assume their support in any form of civil disobedience, because if it does have consequences, it is going to affect them, regardless of whether or not they've expressed explicit consent. And that's what we say is a fundamental problem when it comes to Occupy Central. The final issue in this debate was this idea that Occupy Central, in a way, will be able to make China or Beijing scared in terms of its political leverage, or create a form of international discussion. We say, ladies and gentlemen, that international discussion, insofar that it talks about Occupy Central, has not been very big. We see that Britain itself, when asked to support Occupy Central, refused to do so. In fact, David Cameron came out and said that the Sino-British relationship should be strong rather than weak in these circumstances, explicitly denying any kind of involvement when it comes to Occupy Central. No, thank you, ma'am.
All right, now for the winner. Let's bring in PricewaterhouseCoopers. And the winner, oh my gosh. Oh. Wow. What?
You're disowned. You're disowned, both of you.
Well, congratulations. What a narrow win. But once again, we got schooled by the kids. Congratulations to the Hong Kong Schools Debating Club.